So, like, it's the end of a con. Who here even knows what PCD is? Post-con depression. A lot of you guys are here and you guys have already kind of been through that and you know how to deal with it. Basically, I started doing panels about post-con depression, post-con blues, a long time ago, and I asked a psychologist friend, do you have like some tips and tricks? And he's like, yeah, you could unpack slowly, like unpack your pictures, a little bit more each day, and look at one new object each day. Oh, that's cool. Work on new projects, follow up with the friends you met on Telegram that you would normally ignore because you're too shy to follow up and say hi. You should do all that. Work on projects together with those friends. Some nice tips. But I found that they didn't really help all that much. They helped a little bit. And I started to realize that the reason you get, first of all, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. That's kind of a first note. The problem often is, if you're really sad about the end of an event like this, where you've had so much fun, who would rank this weekend's experience a 5 out of 5? Say yeah.
Yeah.
Who would rank this experience among the best cons you've ever been to in your life? Say yeah.
Yeah.
This is my first con.
Yeah. So, yeah, you guys are excited, and yet this experience is coming to an end. And oftentimes people get really sad after. But past a certain point, you start realizing that if you're getting sad after, there's a reason. And it's because the thing you're going back to at home is so flawed and is so broken, or at least isn't what you want in life. We treat these weekends as escapes oftentimes. And there's sort of a fantasy element of it where we say, oh, I wish it could be this all the time. You wish it could be all the time because it's so much better and you feel so much better than the life you lead back at home. And so, absent this panel, you go back to the party and have fun, and then at the crack of midnight, you pack your bags, the decorations come down, they're business suits in the morning, it's depressing, and you go home, or you wait at the airport all day while your flight is canceled. Does somebody want to, by the way, get the door?
Oh, got it.
Thank you. Yeah. I want people to be able to come in if they want to, but I think at this point we're good. So I had an idea. I said, what if, while you guys are still here and having fun, while you're at a little bit, because like who here has to leave like right after this? Like who here like is done, is out? This is their last thing, they're gone. Say yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, okay.
This is useless for you. I hope you get something out of it. No, I'm kidding. This will actually be good. But a lot of you guys are going to have a rager tonight. It's going to be great. I met my former boyfriend. I met him because I met him after closing ceremonies of one FWA. Like, that whole relationship began and lasted 10 years because of something that happened after a really depressing weekend when I was about to go home. I felt so bad. And another friend was like, hey, you want to come to dinner after closing? I'm like, sure, I guess. And that's where I met him. And we were together for 10 years, and it was amazing. But I was sad before that. So while we're kind of chill and sort of right in the middle of it, let's work on the home part right now. Let's figure out why it might feel so bad to go home. What your life is like right now. And figure out how we can supercharge that with the dreams you've always had, been too afraid to say out loud, and been too afraid to give any second thought to. And the struggles that you're having right now and why. And then figure out what we can do about it together a little bit. So that after the partying, when you go back to it and have an amazing time on the plane, you're not just immediately sad. You're thankful, of course. And you have the pictures and the memories. But then when you're back home, the moment you land, you know exactly what you're going to do and why, with the utmost conviction. And you're excited to get started. That sound good to you guys?
Yeah.
Also, I recognize that I've been saying this is going to be a bit of a difficult panel for me today because in everything I do, I try to I'm in the business of helping people make their dreams come true and making people feel better and comfortable. And, we don't live, I try to focus everything on you, like individually. I don't care about the outside world, I just care about you. but it's impossible to ignore the outside world sometimes. And my job is also to meet the moment. And right now, we're kind of living at a moment where a lot of people, come Monday, are kind of scared for what's going to happen next. Or maybe they've just numbed themselves so much to what's going on that they try to cover their fear by saying they don't care. But I guarantee you'll care if your health care disappears. You'll care if your best friends are rounded up and taken away. There's all sorts of nightmare scenarios that aren't the stuff of fantasy. They have happened, and they've happened with shocking regularity. And that's why a lot of people are really afraid, because we have seen these sorts of behaviors before. They're not unfounded. What do you do in that scenario? How do you make it about you when it feels like things are coming apart? After I had a rough season, and I was supposed to be making videos through that season, but I didn't, because of a lot of personal stuff that was going on, but also, it took me a while to get it together and find the hope that was in there. And so we're going to spend most of this panel not talking about that. We're going to talk about you. But the thing that has helped me most when you're uncertain, and in some ways when you're grieving the loss of something big, whether it be a relationship, in my case, or something like innocence, or institutions you've thought highly of, or maybe what you think our place in the world is, or anything at all, whatever you think. Or maybe you lost a video game and it really meant a lot to you. The best thing you can do is pick apart your emotions and process them, and try to take one thing at a time. Who here's tried meditating before?
Yay.
I'm kidding. Yeah. Say yeah.
Yeah.
How many of you meditate regularly?
Yeah. I can't.
Why not?
It's something I don't want to talk about.
Okay, then why do you say so? It's okay. No,
I just blurted it out.
No, it's all right. And honestly, they can be just quick breathing exercises, you know? Like, let's do a little bit together. So we're gonna do four counts in and 8 counts out. Ready? 1, 2, 3, and in. 1, 2, 3, 4, out. Go. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One more time. And in and 3. 1, 2, 3, and in. 1, 2, 3, 4, out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And when you're doing that, the point is to try to focus on one singular thing. On that breath is a good one that usually works. The point isn't to clear your mind. The point is to focus whatever distracting thoughts that come in, to say, you know what, I will deal with this later. I'm going to refocus on the breath. And it's literally working a muscle. Because if you can start doing that more regularly, of just refocusing from distraction onto the center thing of your choice in a consistent way, then when push comes to shove, when shit truly is hitting the fan, then you can do that there too. And you can say, you know what, I can take care of it. I can get down to business because all these distracting thoughts that I'm afraid of, that are worrying me, I can refocus on the breath like I have trained to do. I can ride the wave of whatever is going on. I can find this personal peace when I need it. And if you're concerned about what's about the next several years, that's a really good first step. How many of you had like something disappointing happen this con? Say yeah.
Yeah.
How many of you had a shit night? Say yeah.
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 How many of you had one thing you were really looking forward to that maybe you were thinking was gonna set you up for something much bigger, completely just fall apart on you? Say yeah.
Yeah.
That's a little too many yeahs for comfort.
So specific.
Well, you act as if it's a singular, unique experience. The fact is, I don't think I know anyone who has ever not had that happen at least once. I have a term I use. I think it's like I phrase it. You're going to bottom out at some point during any event. There's going to just come one period where you just feel like By the way, can I curse? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I'm kind of SFW comfort collie, but you guys are adults. I can curse. There's going to become one period when you just feel like shit, and a lot of you guys know you'll come out of it. But I saw someone on Thursday night who had their bags and was leaving, and they were, or maybe it was even Friday evening, and they were just out. I'm like, oh yeah, you having a good con, or where are you headed so fast? They're like, I'm gonna go enjoy myself this weekend. And they seemed absolutely dejected. And I feel really sorry for them because I've seen people panic like that and call something, thinks everything is over, it's done, because they're being strung along by their emotions. And if you can learn to better process those emotions, a lot of you know how to, a lot of you don't, you'll be in a better place. When you process your emotions, the first step is to try to be aware of what the emotion is. Pick them apart in your head. So if you're fearful of something, you're probably not fearful. Fearful is like if you're in immediate bodily danger, like a dinosaur is bearing down on you, you know? But dinosaurs don't exist anymore. You know, we're in a more civilized world. There are some cases where you are under immediate bodily threat. But those are pretty far and in between. Usually, that's covering something else. Maybe you're vulnerable. Maybe you're feeling like something could happen to you that you don't know. Maybe you're overwhelmed. Maybe you're sad. Maybe you're angry. Maybe you're embarrassed. Maybe you're ashamed. And maybe you're just grieving. Maybe a little bit of grief, but it's powerful all the same. So the first step is to try to identify and pick apart, and it's hard at first, but if you keep trying, you can start to identify, especially if you have a list. Like if I wrote down a list of like anger, grief, vulnerable, feeling vulnerable, sadness, shame, grief, embarrassment, and just pick off that list. Oh, that's the one I'm feeling, or those are the 2 or 3 I'm feeling. Then I know it's not fear, it's one of these actually. And I'm calling it fear just to make things simple. But when you call something fear, it kind of short circuits, and that's all, you're just seeing red. So the first step is to pick apart what you really feel with a phrase, with a word that more accurately describes it. And the other thing you'll notice is that when you feel a particular emotion, your body will react in the same way each time. So when you feel grief, the same 1 to 2 parts, usually it's 2 parts of your body will feel discomfort. When you feel embarrassment, the same 1 or 2 parts of your body will feel discomfort. When you feel angry, it'll come from a couple different parts of your body. And that's kind of useful because you can identify where it's like, oh, my forehead is hot. I feel something in my throat. That probably means that's anger. Or there's a lump in my stomach. And it's a little different for each person, but it's reliable. It's the same sort of emotions linked there. And if you can start getting in tune with what those different things are, you can even start to catch them before your head registers them. You can feel them coming on. So identifying emotions as they happen is really, really important because it gets you out of that death spiral of being literally like water skiing on the back of the boat of your emotions, you know, and just gets you removed of it. Where it's like, oh, I know what this is. Emotions are just sensations your body is going through. Who here's had a tummy ache? Say yeah.
Yeah.
Emotions are kind of the same thing. They're just something your body is going through. You feel discomfort somewhere. You feel really hot somewhere. And that causes you to do things, and those reactions, you know, are kind of hardwired in because you do it so often. But really, once you start to pull back the curtain and see them for what they are, it's all just discomfort. And if you can learn to identify that instead of jumping into the emotion itself, and it'll be really hard at first, and then you'll sort of start to be able to do it after a bit. Then you can start to say, you know what? This is just something my body is going through. I'm going to try to sort of mentally, like we did in the meditation, step back and ride the wave. Just kind of bring my thoughts to the center and just wait the 1.5 minutes it takes for my body to do its thing. Now, if you keep pressing that emotion button, if you keep indulging in it, it's going to keep being bad. You're literally pressing the emotion button and you're thinking those same thoughts that inspired that emotion. It's going to keep going. But if you can stop pressing the emotion button, if you can bring yourself thinking about center, saying, this is just something my body is, my body acts predictably. It's just something it's going through. Okay? Pull, push, pull back. So when I feel bad about something, I identify the emotion. Truly, I try to identify where in my body it's coming from. I try to identify what caused me to think it. What was the thought? What was the action? What caused me? What put me here? And then I try for the next minute and a half or something, I try to ride the wave. Just, and then it will subside. Everyone here think of something that happened this weekend that got them a little bit ticked off. Not a huge thing. I don't want to cause anyone hurt here. But something that was relatively annoying. Something that you're still a little bit off about. Do you have that? Say you have to have that.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to do that. When you feel that, do you feel emotion welling up somewhere? Say yeah if you feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to identify the emotion. Can you identify that emotion? Say yeah.
Yeah.
You can take a minute to think about it. Who will identify that emotion for me? Somebody.
No.
Huh? Just say it out loud.
I was angry. I was mad that my room key just stopped working randomly on.
Yeah. Someone else. I don't need an explanation. Just say the emotion. Somebody.
Embarrassment.
Okay. Somebody else?
Divergent needs.
Divergent needs. Well,
Yeah.
but still, that's not even simple enough. Again, one of those on the list. Were you angry? Were you sad? Were you feeling made to feel vulnerable? Doesn't matter the why.
I guess I was angry, but in a way where I can't be mad because it's just how the con's going.
Doesn't matter. Yes, you can be mad. That's the problem. Despite the justifications don't matter. This isn't about your cerebral cortex. This isn't about smart. This is about lizard brain. This is about us pre-evolution. These things in the amygdala are still with us from those prehistoric times.
Yeah.
That's why I feel so bad when you're like, I shouldn't be angry. Why am I angry? Because they come from different evolved places of our brain.
Yeah.
So if you could learn to manage the prehistoric parts a little better, which is a hard-fought skill, you can get better with it. So it doesn't matter justification. You need to respect that your body, that your brain, is still going to have to do its thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. You want to identify the key emotion. So once you have that, and clearly you have the reason, the thing that touched it off, the trigger, then just with that breathing exercise, just ride the wave. Don't judge it. Don't judge the emotion. It's just a thing. It's just a little hamster on the wheel doing its thing from prehistoric times. And it's going to do it either way. What you do in response to it is your choice. But if you can disengage from it, just breathe it out, and just say, my body's just doing its thing. I'm not going to judge it. I can deal with processing it like what it means later. And then after all that, you can start to think, every emotion is here to tell us something. What is this emotion here to tell me? And it's there to tell us something that will further our survival. Truly. So I had a friend say, the emotion is there to tell you something. And it's like, well, it's there to tell me something, then I won't say what it was, but something like really cynical and very, nihilist. I'm like, no, it's there to tell you something that's going to help you live longer and better and have a better life. Sometimes if it's about a group, like if we're rejected from something, it's there to tell you to get back in a group because we do better in groups. And in prehistoric times, if you weren't in a group, you were kind of eaten at some point. You were left for dead. About love, there's that rejection, but also it's there to show you friendship, friendly love, or a romantic relationship. Sometimes that emotion is there to show you that you really valued that person, that those events all mean something. And that's a good thing. So every emotion is there to tell us something, sometimes in extreme ways, but they all have a message for us. Now, sometimes it's hard pulling out that message, but again, it's always a positive message that is there to further our survival. Evolution says we wouldn't have those if at some point it was not necessary for our survival. You're the ones who won the lottery. Everyone else is dead. This is why. So once you recognize those things, it's easier to get through some difficult times. I'm not saying it solves everything. We've been in some pretty extraordinary times lately. But the more you can kind of step away for a second, stop seeing red, and go through this process of ID, ID the feeling, ID the physical sensation, ID the trigger. Ride the wave for the minute 30. Stop pressing the button. Let it subside. And then process. Try to figure out, well, what's this trying to tell me that's actually productive and is a positive force in my life. And that's honestly how I get through it. And then the other thing for times that are coming up that helps me is honestly what we all lived during COVID. One day at a time. Hey guys.
Just clicking on him.
Oh yeah, Ty, you and also you two, please get the hell out and go
Are you
like
good? You need water?
go take your heads off.
If you
Please
do
do not be unsafe, okay?
Hydrate yourself.
Yes, please hydrate. Listen, nobody. I respect your character performance. Nobody cares. Nobody cares if you're dead. If you're, I mean, what I mean to say, if you're dead, it doesn't matter. The character performance doesn't matter if you're on the ground passed out. So please don't be a hero. Be a Greek hero. They taste really good. No. Okay. So that out of the way, we spent a lot of time talking about stuff I don't usually talk about in this order because honestly, I don't usually need to, but I feel like this is a very particular moment in time and it begs us to beat that moment and try to use some strategies that are going to help us, especially when you can deal with this in a few ways. You can obsess about every little thing that's happening. You could look at the news a lot and get into it and have every single breaking news alert on your phone and die inside a little bit every single time you see that something happens and be really afraid all the time. But I don't think that's a good idea because it's going to burn you out instantly and it's going to make you pretty miserable. You can bury your head in the sand. A lot of people like doing that. Who here has buried their head in the sand a bunch over these past few years?
Hell yeah.
Say yeah. I don't think that works well for you either. And the reason is like, I'm a collie. Well, actually, no. The better to say, you're like the sheep that has the wolf circling it. Huh?
Sheep.
Oh, yeah. But we're not going to eat the sheep. We're just hurting them.
Oh.
Yeah.
Not hurting them.
Hurting. Hurting. No, don't eat the sheep.
Don't hurt, just hurt.
Sheep are friend, not food.
Yes, beat the sheep. I don't, so the frog, they're going to boil the frog and you're not going to know until it's too late because you decided not to pay attention to anything. And that's helpful in some ways if you're working on a project, but not all the time because you're not Elon Musk. You don't have all the money and resources that are inculcated from everything like he is. You actually have to worry about outside forces sometimes. So it's best to sometimes understand a little about what is happening so you can make the decisions you need to make. The best road for me that I have found, and everyone's got to find what's best for them, but for me it is something somewhere in the middle, where I watch or listen to the news once a day. You try to listen to a known good, pretty middle line source that's not going to fly too much to one side and be guilty of a lot of the biases that one might. I like a guy named Phil DeFranco on YouTube. He's been doing this a long time, and he's a father, and he's lived in the Southeast, in Georgia, which is pretty red. He's lived in California and LA, which is pretty blue. He's really even-handed about stuff. The Associated Press, Reuters, the Newswires. Some people like what NPR is saying. Some people have their own favorite source. But try to have some good, known, honest news sources you can look to once, maybe twice a day, and no more. That's it. Don't doom scroll. Unsubscribe from those Twitter Blue Sky feeds that are always saying the current of everything. I get a newsletter every day. One newsletter that summarizes the entire day in one paragraph. Easy. So, and there's a phrase for this. It's called an information diet. An information diet is just like a regular diet, but it has to do with what's going into your head. And you can't make good decisions if everything coming into your head is inspiring panic. Who here would you say has a really, really solid, balanced information diet? Say yeah.
Yeah.
Who here doesn't? Say yeah.
Yeah.
50-50, I'll take it. If you're just watching gaming videos all the time, I don't think that's a good information diet.
What?
Oh.
Sorry, I apologize.
I got rid of the cable over a decade ago, sorry.
Excuse me, or unless it's like one of those gaming videos where it's just like Subway Riders in one half and like the evening news in the other half. You know, that could be gaming videos that are worth it. Anyway, this part, I honestly I spent so much time on this because I want you guys to be prepared for anything that comes. And during COVID, honestly, the biggest lesson was every day at a time, one day at a time. Keep your knees loose. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. If you had said that COVID was going to happen, if you had been able to predict that COVID was going to happen, you'd be an impossible creature because nobody did. I know so many people who are pessimists and nihilists who are convinced they know exactly the way the world works, and it's always shortchanging the little guy, and the oligarchs always win, and everything's going to hell in a handbag, and we're all going to die at some point. Well, congratulations, you're right. We're all going to die at some point. What of it? It's not necessarily original or creative or satisfying or helpful. I'm not hopeful because there's some naive bone in me. I'm not a kid. I am hopeful because it's the only way I can keep living. Because if I don't find that string, then I have a really bad time. But the thing that's nice about it is you can always pull on that string. There is always a silver lining, no matter how small. It might not be the most satisfying, but there's always something you can do. Humanity, to me, is marked by the fact that you can wake up each new day and try something new, and try to have some sliver of hope, even when everything looks lost. But what about all of you? Past all of that, you guys have 6 human needs. There's a pyramid. Maslow. Who's heard of Maslow's pyramid of needs?
Yeah.
There we go. Sky, can you help me write this out?
I was sitting back there wondering if you knew that you wanted to write that.
I apologize. I'm sorry. Nice work that you did. Okay. This one, you guys should, if you have don't you people have phones? You guys should take out your phones and take a note of this, okay? Because this is important. So you guys have 6 needs, and we can look at where your life is by looking at these 6 needs. They're important. And this is a bit of an adaptation of the pyramid that focuses more on the stuff we're talking about. It's very similar. You have 6 needs. The first need is certainty.
At the bottom of the top one.
Don't think about the pyramid.
The pyramid's important. It's because they build each other and support each other.
It's more like a pyramid, but inside like a building. It doesn't matter.
It's more like a condo complex.
I should have specified.
Let's make this a hopscotch board.
Ooh, I like that.
It's a pyramid that illustrates that human beings tend to work on base needs more before their minds are free for focusing on higher worries.
And actually, you would think that, but actually you're 100% wrong.
Oh,
Nope.
Jenga tower.
It is a symbol of the Illuminati. They won't tell you this in school. It's true. No, just,
Okay, sorry.
we don't need to. I apologize.
No, it's okay.
We don't need the shape. It's just a list. It's just a list. There's 6 items, and you can just write it down on your phone. The first one is certainty. You have a need for certainty to know what is going to happen tomorrow and what's going to happen today, and that's why we have schedules, and that's why schedules make us feel good, because we don't have to be afraid, we don't have to be fearful, we don't have to make other plans. We know where we're going to be at 6 p.m., we know where we're going to be at 8 p.m., we know we're going to be at 8 a.m. We don't have to worry about something cropping up. We feel like we have control. We know we're going to have a roof over our head. We love certainty. But we also, we love the second item, which is uncertainty. We love both. Because if everything is the same all the time, then that's not really fulfilling either. So we also have a need for some uncertainty. Of course, we would like it if all the uncertainty were like, all the surprises were good surprises. We can't control that though. But we do have a need for some amount of uncertainty too. So we have a core need for certainty and a core need for some uncertainty. We also have a core need for significance. You know, you want to be something. You want to be someone. You want to do something. You want to feel like you've done something special and unique, contributing to society. Some people want the accolades from something they've done at work. Some people want to create something, a piece of art, because people will see and go, wow, that's a really cool piece of art. Some people want Twitter followers. Some people want to be popufers. Whatever your clout chasers, whatever the reason, and whether you think it's good or bad or healthy or whatever, it's a human need for some amount of significance in some small way. The fourth need, and again, you have all of these needs just in different amounts. The fourth need is just as important, and it is for love/connection. And what I mean to say is, some people want a romantic relationship, they want a life partner, they need that romance in their life, that sexual attraction. Some people just want a really solid, close group of friends. It comes from the same place. So, in a weird way, those first two, certainty and uncertainty, they're kind of paradox. It's kind of a paradox. You want kind of both, but they're completely separate, or completely opposite. Significance and love connection are opposed with each other too, because one is saying, how am I different from everyone else? The other is saying, how am I the same as everyone else, or this other group of people, or this other person that I really want in my life? But again, we're complicated, and you have a need for them both. Some people will go their entire lives and just focus on these four needs. But there are two more. There are two final ones. The fifth need, and these are kind of more like bedrock. These are more closer kind of to your heart and soul. The fifth one is for growth. A lot of people will choose those first four needs and then come out, why do I still feel depressed? Why do I still feel lost? Why do I still feel sad? Well, the reason is because they're not focusing on these other two, which is you need growth. You want to take in new information, new experiences, and new learnings, and new everything. You know? They say, the phrase is, if you're not growing, you're dying. Well, you could see that as true in this context. And then the final one is you have a need for contribution. To take all of those things you've been growing by and learning and giving them out, giving them back somehow, And not, for the significance it gets you from getting a compliment about it, or from feeling like people are admiring you or lauding you, but just because you have a need to give it back, By the way, this is just a model. There are all sorts of other models. Some models of Maslow and human needs say there's a need for justice. There are some other ones too. This one is helpful in terms of trying to identify what your needs are and what that can tell you about your life. So that's why we're using this. So again, those needs, and I would write them down: certainty, uncertainty, significance, love connection, growth, and contribution.
Oh,
What's up?
do you think that some people maybe have different, percentages of need in all these different categories than others?
Absolutely. Well, not even just that, you have different percentages of filling them, So maybe when you feel shit, you might be filling all these boxes, but some of those important ones you might be only filling to a 2 or a 3. You can meet, and the bigger thing that matters even more than that, Red Eye, is not just the needs that are a priority to you, but how you're filling them. And that's getting a bit ahead of ourselves. But first, right now, I want to do a quick exercise. Go ahead in your head. I want you to, in your head, name your 2, first and foremost, the most important needs to you. Like when you think of yourself as a person, what are your 2 most important needs, okay? Of that list. Okay, you guys got them? Say yeah.
Yeah.
All right, what are your top needs? Go. Okay, never mind. I was like, no, any of you, just one person to say them out loud.
Certainty and connection.
Okay, how about you?
Growth and connection.
Yeah, that's fine. How about you?
Let's say growth and connection.
Okay. And what about one more? Just one more person. Say their 2 top needs are.
contribution, and uncertainty.
Okay.
Uncertainty.
I want to try this. Those are all extremely valid. I want to try this exercise one more time. But I want you this time to pretend you are being watched by, I want you to pretend you're an alien who is, or a scientist who is watching your life from the outside day to day. After a week of embedding with you, what would they say, your top, just by how you live your life, what are your top 2 needs? Just think about that. From the same list. Are they the same? Say yeah if they are.
Yeah.
Say no if they're not.
No.
That's a much stronger, and that's the problem. We have our sense of identity, which is playing on what we feel like in our idealized image of ourselves, this whole other version of ourselves that is completely, divorced from how we feel like we are forced by situation or habit or anything, or just the situation we're in, of what our life is. It's why personas are so awesome. Do you think I'm really a dog and go flop, flop, flop in real life?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you're right, I am. Awesome. But sadly, I've actually struggled because I used to have another persona before Hope, and I've kind of struggled with Hope because I love Hope and he's awesome, but I kind of feel bad calling myself Hope a lot of times because I'm often not nearly as patient as Hope is, as I want Hope to be. I'm often not nearly as altruistic. Sometimes I feel a little petty, and that's not a quality I ascribe to Hope at all. I've done a lot of growing, especially since I've had Hope, honestly. My personality is much more like Hope's, how I portray him to be, than it ever has before. But I'm not perfect. But it's all because we have these idealized versions. Of ourselves in our heads, furry or not. And when you feel like you're not fulfilling that, that's what creates the pain inside. And also, what?
That makes me feel much better with that diagram.
Oh, like
It's just a bunch of circles.
It's like a red line.
Oh yeah, that works.
It's like a tree of life.
There's also, but you're right, Ray, there is that thing of, you also look at how you're fulfilling your needs though. So you can fill each of these needs in ways that are net gain for yourself, other people, society, anything, that are net neutral, and that are net negative. So you could be filling your need for certainty, but you could be doing it by smoking 15 packs a day. So yes, that does fill a need, but it does so in a very destructive way. Maybe you're video gaming, and that fills your need for uncertainty, because something new happens in the video game each time you explore. Or maybe you get significance because you get an achievement or something. And that's kind of net neutral, except for the time you're losing, but that's not a huge deal for most people. So sometimes if you're feeling horrible, you're feeling everything's off, it's worth looking at your needs and the things that you think are a priority versus the ones that actually are, and then trying to figure out what is causing that to be that way. And then look at how you're filling those needs. And if the ways you're filling them, well, if they're kind of all negatives, or a lot of them are negatives, that might explain why you're not doing so great. And investigating how you can address those. A lot of that is beyond the scope of what we're doing here. I'm trying to figure out what to move to next, because we don't have nearly as much time as we often do. But a lot of you guys who here has dreamed a lot about what they might do if they had their ideal life? Say yeah if you have.
Yeah.
Say no if you haven't. That's good. That means you all have. You still remember all those things. Say yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're a furry and you think about those things more often. And I think a lot of you underestimate yourselves too. Amazing things can happen. But you have to have an action plan to get there. And a lot of you guys are either overwhelmed or have some hitch in the plan that you can't get around, that makes it feel like it's impossible. And the only great things in this world have been attempted by people who felt that way too, and struggled against it, and ultimately threw the caution away and did it anyway. Just dream with me here for a couple minutes, on your phones right now. I want you guys to write a list of, let's say, 4 to 5 big things you've always wanted to do. Always wanted to be anything. Just a massive dream, just like the starting point for a dream or goal list. They can be pedestrian, but honestly, a lot better if they're things you've always, deep in your heart, wanted to dream that are within the realm of physical possibility for now. This is an exercise you can do on your own time later and give it much more time, but I just want to contain it to something you can do shortly. So just do 4 or 5. Dreams or goals you've always wanted to do. Languages you've always wanted to learn. Things you've always wanted to build. Things you think would make you happy. Things you think would make you feel fulfilled in any of these categories, by the way. Maybe things that would bring you closer to the needs that you see yourself for yourself and your own identity. And I'm not talking like have $1 million. I mean like how to get there. Things you can do about that. I'll give you a few more seconds to finish that list. All right, so who here has at least somewhat a little bit of a list? Say yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Usually I would have like music and we'd spend like a few minutes on each of these, but we don't have that time today. Now I want you to guys can go ahead and assign what I call a time horizon to each of those items. And we're going to do, and if you could help write this down. 1 year or less, 2 years, 5 years, or 10 plus years. So -1, 2, 5, or 10 plus. And I want you to assign this is the amount of time you think it would theoretically take you to achieve that goal or dream. And I want you to assign one of those to each of the items you just wrote down. And you might surprise yourself, actually. All right, who has done that for at least a few of the items? Say yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I want you to pick. Does anyone on the list have 1 or 2 items that are 1 or less? Say yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I want you to take that item, and I want you to think, and maybe write a quick sentence or think about why doing this thing is so important to you. What is so important about that thing? What would it mean to you if you did that? Again, I said I wanted you guys to think big a little bit. But what would it really mean? What need would it fulfill? Why is this a thing you want to do with conviction? Because if you don't have conviction about it, it shouldn't be on the list. And if you don't have conviction about it, how in the world do you think you're ever going to do it? Someone really quickly want to give me an example of one of their dreams if they're feeling brave? If not, that's okay. Yeah.
Publish my book series.
Say it louder.
Publish my book series.
That's fantastic. You think you do that in a year? That's fantastic. Why? What would it mean to you if you could publish your book series?
Like a lot.
Okay, but like, what itch would it scratch? Like what? Why is that such a dream for you? Really quickly.
The significance need.
To be seen as an author, as a creator who makes amazing things. That's really beautiful. So the final step of that is I want you to take that dream or that goal that you have broken down that has a 1 year or less time horizon that you might expect, that you have with conviction. And I want you guys to write down the next step in doing that. Like break it down. Like you say, oh, well, I have to just, but it's overwhelming. No, break that down. What is the first step to doing that you haven't done yet? And if it's too overwhelming, break it down more. What is the first step? And write that step down. Who wants to volunteer to say what the first step of whatever that goal is? Anybody? Bueller? Just shout it out.
Sign up for that class.
I'm sorry?
Sign up for that class.
Sign up for that class. Somebody else?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Practice.
Practice what?
Music.
Yes. But less than that. Not just practice music. That's really vague too. There's a lot of steps to that. What's the first step of practicing music?
Learning new skills within the music.
Okay, what's the first step in that? Again, I'm hearing a lot of vagaries here that it's just a ball of stuff and you're never gonna do it. So the first actionable step that you can take, what is the first step? Think for a second and break down if you haven't yet. I'm talking the micro actionable stuff.
I wanna learn to drive stick.
And the first step of that, I would expect, is watching
YouTube?
No, watching that segment in Wreck-It Ralph, where she's learning how to drive a stick.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Wreck-It Ralph 2.
No, Wreck-It Ralph 1. Yeah. I love it when you notice that. Oh, she's driving. Yeah. Okay, well, somebody else. What is the first step in your dream that you can actually take action on? Somebody.
Picking a color palette.
I'm sorry?
Picking a color palette.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, cool. And there are lots of resources to do that. Somebody else. The first step. Are you guys just too nervous, or are you afraid to, or do you just not have it figured out yet?
I also wanna do the toilet.
And the first step to that is,
Save money.
that's a good one. Start. What I'm trying to do, guys, is get you guys to start thinking more of an action mindset. There's a lot of reasons we don't break these things apart more. Usually it's because we're overwhelmed, but oftentimes we're afraid. We're afraid of the can of worms that's going to open, of the project that's going to chain us to. But again, try to think about the other way. Try to think about it in, if I don't do this, what is that going to mean? If I look back on my life in 20 years and didn't do this, am I going to be okay with it? Always looking at things in the future rearview mirror can be a helpful lens, oftentimes. I know when I had the money, finally, after a long time for a fursuit, I didn't quite register it for 6 months. And that's because I had my thing, and I knew getting a fursuit is a lot of work, and commitments, and money, and it's irresponsible, and this doesn't make sense in any way, shape, or form. And then finally I was like, well, you're not going to be young at some point. And what, you're going to get a fursuit when you're 50? At what point will this make sense? It's never going to make sense. There's some block for all of you that is stopping you from committing on your dreams, on that one thing you want to do. We tried to break it down as best we can here. But if you're not acting on it, it's because that step isn't simple enough, or there's something blocking you from being okay committing to it. And that's the nugget of the pain. If you can put aside the ego or the pride or maybe the fear of the challenges, again, back to those emotions, it's not really fear, it's just overwhelm. If it's overwhelmed, you can break it apart. If it is vulnerability, well, you know what? You're always vulnerable. You're vulnerable when you get into a car. You do things every day that make you more vulnerable than taking the first step on this thing. You are the only one you are accountable to. Someday, you are going to only have a version of yourself from way before in your mind to look back on. And they're going to look at you and say, did you do the things that you could do, but were just too afraid to? There's that part of your brain on the inside, that child part of your brain that grew up just like your normal part of the brain. And it's the part that is always, always insecure and shouting at you that you are not good enough. It thinks that you should stop trying this new thing. It thinks that you sound bad. It thinks that your art looks like shit. It thinks that you're not good enough. And it's telling you all of this very loudly, all the time. Who here has that voice? Say yeah. Yeah. I want you to close your eyes for a second and imagine that voice, that person, that version of you in the corner of a room, sitting down, crying their eyes out. They are just like you. They have your same dreams, your same wants, your same fears, your same experiences, but they look like an utter mess. Just like you have matured in the way that you know how to control some of your feelings and you know which ones to listen to and which ones to discount. This one has grown up too, but it doesn't have those mature that mature knowledge of what to do, all it is bigger and shouts at you louder because it is still that same version of you when you were younger. And it's important, actually, as it turns out. I want you to walk over to it in your head. I want you to give it a hug. It is just trying to protect you. It just wants you to be safe and feel better. And it thinks in its immature way that the best way of doing that is to try to dissuade you from doing it at all. Because you will not be uncomfortable if you stop doing it now. You won't risk embarrassment. You won't risk failure. And the reason for that is that in some ways, we are afraid that if we fail, which is what this voice is trying to prevent, for whatever reason, if we fail, we are not worthy of love. Somewhere, and it sounds ridiculous, I know, but somewhere inside is the feeling that if I fail, I'm not worthy of love. Maybe from your parents, maybe from your friends, most definitely from yourself. But you know that's not true. I want you to hug that voice. I want you to squeeze it, that version of you. I want you to tell it it's going to be okay. That you hear it and you understand that voice you've been fighting against this whole time is actually just there trying to help. It's just trying to offer perspective. And that if you listen to it, listen to what it's trying to say, just like those emotions before that we think we don't like but are trying to tell us something, if you listen to that voice, but understandably in a mature way, say, you know what, I hear your voice, but I'm going to go anyway. Because I know you're trying to stop me from failure, but I know that actually if I fail and I learn something and try again, I'm even better and I'm even stronger. And that's the only way that's going to happen. So all of you who had those dreams, but you had that first task that you either didn't want to say out loud, or were overwhelmed by because it's still too big, or it's improbable, that very well might be the thing that's standing in your way. But the more you can make nice with your body and everything that you ever thought was flawed about it, but actually, it's all there for a reason, and it's all trying to help you. And you're going to need all the help that you can get if you want to make any of your dreams come true, and if you want to face all the adversity that is going to be coming to us in the coming years. You're going to need to marshal all of it. But you have a plan now, at least the beginnings of something. I want you to do these exercises where you write out your dreams, you try to figure out, and you can take much longer with it, write out how long it might take for each one, and write out a conviction of why that dream is so important to you, and some first steps. I want you to try to do that a few times a year. Check in with yourself. Because then you can really see where your mind is really at. And then you have a true first step. And you don't have the excuse of, well, I can't, or, well, I don't want to, or, well, I'm afraid. Because the step is too simple. Maybe the first step is opening a web browser and Googling for 5 minutes about the topic. Maybe the first step is calling your pharmacy. Maybe the first step is calling your pharmacy about some drug that's going to help you, not something bad. Maybe the first step is calling a friend who you haven't talked to in a long time. Maybe the first step is just writing something down. But you keep creating these excuses for yourself to not have to deal with these things. Oftentimes we do it because our minds are designed to do that, to avoid pain. We're very good at it. But you know the game. Really, you do, in the back of your head, you know what your body is trying to do. It's trying to prevent you from having pain by distracting you by the very thing you need to be dealing with, albeit in a mindful and productive way, knowing that there's a hamster wheel in there, and that unevolved part of the brain loves to run it and take you on a ride. But if you can identify that and know it's happening, then you can take some of the steps we've talked about today to deal with it in a mindful way and take the things it's trying to say and turn those into a productive action that you know needs to happen if you're ever going to get to that conviction that you wrote out before. You have a plan. I want you to open your calendars for 1 second. If you have phones, open up your calendar, and I want you to set a new reminder for the time that you get home. The day and time you think you're going to walk in the door of your home, or maybe 5 minutes after that. And I want you to write down, take first action step. I don't want you guys to walk out of here and forget about what you have thought about and done here today. I want this to be the first step. So unpack slowly, yes. Talk to your friends slowly, yes. But most of all, that dream you've always had that we're too afraid to execute on, or just didn't for whatever reason, and in truth, it is something deep down. It wasn't just because. It was because something in your mind wanted you to not think about it, because something about it was scary. Except it wasn't. It was just one of those emotions we were talking about before. And once you can start to approach more of your inner life like that, you're going to be able to get a lot more done, even when things are stressful. What is your big dream? Just say it out loud, somebody.
Make a fursuit.
Make a fursuit. Somebody, your big dream, say it out loud.
Have a fursuit.
Have a fursuit. So what is your big dream? Say it out loud.
Get a doctorate.
Get a doctorate. What is your big dream? Say it out loud.
Be a voice actor.
What is your big dream? Say it out loud.
Make a friend.
What is your big dream? Say it out loud.
Live performance.
What is your big dream? Say it out loud.
Book series.
Yeah!
Are you guys going to have taken a step on that by the next time I see you all here or some other convention next year? Say yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going to deal with some of those inner demons by the time I see you next year? Say yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going to leave here and go back to the convention and have an amazingly good time? Say yeah.
Yeah.
When you go home, are you going to see a calendar reminder and actually execute on that first step and then make a note of what the next one is? Say yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going to try not to be afraid? Say yeah.
Yeah.
I love you all. My name is Hope Colley, and I can't wait to see what you guys do in the next year. Thank you guys for coming.